The program that you're about to hear contains material that may be offensive to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Go ahead. Make my day.
2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to Right and Writer, the official podcast of the Washington Free Beacon. I'm your host, Elizabeth Harrington. You can follow me on Twitter at LizWFB. The Free Beacon podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. Joining me from the right today is Free Beacon Editor-in-Chief Matthew Continetti. You may remember him from such mainstream media programs as Special Report and Meet the Press. You can follow him on Twitter at Continetti. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Liz.
And further to Matt's right is Free Beacon President and Chicago Bleach salesman Aaron Harrison. We're not exactly sure what he does around the office besides the checks, and that's good enough for us. Hello, Harrison.
It's good to be here, Liz.
Up first on Right and Writer, it's rule by tyranny, according to a lawyer for a 3-time ISIS bride who wants to come back to the U.S. Though she's not a U.S. citizen, has no valid passport, no visa, Hoda Mutana, who was living in Alabama before she went to Syria to join the Islamic State, says it's in the Constitution to let ISIS brides come back. She married an Australian jihadist who was killed while fighting. She then married a Tunisian fighter and bore a son. After that husband was killed, Muhatna then married a Syrian fighter. But now she says she's sorry, but mean President Trump won't allow her to come back. When asked if she deserves punishment for becoming an enemy combatant of the United States, Muhatna said, maybe therapy lessons? Matt, I think we're all going to need therapy if we're really having this debate.
This is the weirdest debate I've ever heard of. I mean, there's a way for her to come back to U.S. soil. It's to be sent to Guantanamo Bay prison. And that's if she's not a citizen, right? If she is a citizen, then the government should indict her and bring her back that way. And there's, an ambiguity in the law, which is that you're not automatically stripped of your citizenship when you go and join a totalitarian enemy of the United States and of civilization, like this woman did. And so Ted Cruz had a bill a few years ago that would do that would automatically strip people like this lady of her citizenship so that there wouldn't even be a question about it. I think he should resubmit the bill. But at this point, it's like easy peasy. She either goes to jail or she goes to Gitmo, preferably the latter.
Harrison.
But preferably she gets droned off the face of the earth.
Yeah, like Anwar al-Awlaki,
right,
also an American citizen.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that was like the one good thing Obama did was drone the living crap out of that little terrorist bastard. And so I don't understand why are we, okay, so if there is a legal precedent set by Obama that we can drone American citizens overseas, Matt's exactly right. Why are we even debating whether she can come back and sit in a courthouse and spew her propaganda? She's going to be she'll be the next Jesse Smollett when it comes to publicity. The free media campaigns will overflow, and look, Gitmo is the right place for her. Look, let's just let her cool off down there until we figure out what to do with her. I think that's exactly what you should do. If you can't drone her, put her down
until
there.
we figure out what the hell is going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Send them to Gitmo.
They're totally right.
But I don't know. Gitmo takes so long. I mean, we still have KSM.
Does it?
Pre-trial.
But he's there.
He's there, but kill him.
Listen, we're still trying to figure out
I mean, how is that dude still alive? It's insane.
I think it's more fun to figure out, like, to just kind of toss him around and be like, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll give him a trial. But let's just wait on this for about 10 or 15 years, and we'll get back to it. We'll revisit this when the law changes. We'll revisit this when people figure out what exactly we want to do with him. And if he happens to die in custody, what do you want us to do? I mean, look, we'll figure it out one of these days.
All right, up next now for an update on the very reasonable moderates in the Democratic 2020 race. Top candidates are now endorsing reparations, the failing New York Times reports. Kamala Harris told a radio host she believes government government reparations for Black Americans are necessary. And Pocahontas agrees, saying we need systemic structural changes to address, quote, government-sanctioned discrimination in this country. The Times calls support for reparations part of their, quote, morally driven policy goals. The paper notes even the most left-wing elected officials have shied away from supporting reparations in the past, which would cost several $1 trillion. Harrison, it's a great idea. Pocahontas can start by pairing the Cherokee Nation.
You know, Pocahontas would be actually, it's so funny. She hates billionaires. She hates millionaires. She would actually be a really good billionaire because she's so good at spending money. Like,
Right.
Think about this. Like, there's like unlimited funds. She just wants to dole it all out there, light it on fire because who cares? There's, I mean, just for the fun of it, because you can get this great political advantage by talking about all the money that you're going to waste. Pocahontas, I honestly don't, she has such bad political judgment. And it's been shown over and over and over again. This stuff is fatal in a general election. I understand the race to the left in the Democratic Party, but like if you're going to actually run on this platform, you have to own this for the next 2 years. And when normal people hear this, they laugh their heads off.
Right. It's crazy. Matt.
Harrison's right. I mean, don't take it from us. Take it from Jonathan Chait, New York Magazine, not someone who I normally cite, but he tweeted out and said, this is, he can understand why a candidate might take this position in a primary, but that's just setting yourself up for defeat in the general election. But this is part of a trend with Kamala, which I write about today in Free Beacon, which is, she has a lot of strengths as a candidate, and she certainly seems like the right fit for the current shape of the Democratic Party. But she also has this manner of kind of blitheness and cavalierness, which I think is going to really hurt her in the end. And the example, this came too late for me to include in the column, but the examples I give are her, her offhand remark that let's just eliminate private interest.
Right.
Move on. Time to move on.
But she gets these rapturous applauses.
I know,
in
but
these crazy.
But you know what they are?
But that's gonna
they're
stick
they're breadcrumbs
Yeah, they
are.
that and who's going to be following this trail? A man named Donald J. Trump, right? And then you look at her response to being asked about her Jussie Smollett tweet where she
Right.
said that it was a modern-day lynching, and she clearly had no idea what the question was about. And it was possibly because she never even wrote the tweet, which I think we discussed on the show. Mm-hmm. And then it was also her answer again into a radio interview where they asked had she ever done smoked pot, and she kind of said, "Sure, I did. Yes, I did." And what are you kidding me? I'm Jamaican.
Mon.
Which her father,
Disgusting stereotypes.
she's half Jamaican. Her dad's Jamaican. Her mother's Indian. Her father wrote to a Jamaican website castigating his own daughter for
Rolling
playing
in their
up this
grave, yeah.
stereotype of Jamaicans smoking weed. And I mean, it's just starting to mount up. There's a friend of mine who is plugged in Democratic politics, says the real question, he'd never, say this, but what Democrats are talking about now is they can't figure out is Kamala the female Obama or the African American Hillary? And honestly, that's up for grabs right now.
Because this latest example, again,
more evidence to the latter, I think.
The radio host brought it up, and she was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I agree
She's
with that," and that's a
always
huge
playing
problem
to the audience. She's
Right.
always playing to the audience. What she doesn't understand
She's
is
very inauthentic. I think.
I think the calculus a lot of Democrats are making is that they don't need to worry about a general election. It's the same thing you hear every 4 years. Demographics, the changing nature of America. We are going to win. We are going to win. We don't need to worry about those white working class racist nationalists who went for Trump. The demographics and history is on our side. Well, guess what, guys? It doesn't always work out that way.
Well, and guess what? They've also never had to run a general election. Kamala Harris, a Democratic machine candidate from day one, literally plucked out of a DA's office and placed into the United States Senate. Elizabeth Warren, plucked out of left-wing academia and
They've
placed
never
into
had
the
to
United
appeal
States Senate.
to anybody but their
from
far left.
Massachusetts and California, the two most overpowering Democratic states in the country, have elected these two people that have never had to run a race in a real state where they had to compete for votes. And you know who else is out there that's in a very similar situation? Joe Biden. never really had to run a race.
Right. Well, he's
he's
run.
not-
Well,
he's
he
run,
has, and he hasn't lasted long.
two presidential elections and lost.
These guys, they're too comfortable in their own environment. They've never been tested, and they're sloppy and lazy when you get them onto the national stage.
Just one. I mean, you make a great point. But the one candidate so far who has announced, who comes from a state where she has had to take into account the opinions of people who are not on the left, is Klobuchar. And she's going nowhere.
Right.
Well,
She's getting left behind
right now, anyway.
by the left.
Possible opening for Sherrod Brown, who
Another one.
I will never understand how they elected such a communist out of the state of Ohio.
Well, he said, the problem with Ohio Republicans, not the voters, it's the candidates that they put up again and again are just kind of always the most milquetoast Chamber of Commerce types, and that's not a person who's going to defeat someone like Sherrod Brown.
Oh, John Kasich would disagree with that vehemently.
Yeah.
All right, up next, the Obama Presidential Library is actually not going to be a library at all, as the most transparent president in history is going to decide what to put online in a digital archive. The, quote, Working Center for Citizenship will not even have a library, but be an Obama museum, privately run with no partnership with the National Archives. Papers donated by family members, cabinet members, and aides, as well as pre-presidential and personal papers, could end up scattered or even uncollected, the New York Times reports. The absence of a true Obama presidential library will have the effect of discouraging serious and potentially critical research into the Obama presidency, said historian David Garrow. Matt, in other words, down the memory hole it goes.
Who would want to research the Obama presidency? It's an utter failure.
There's no legacy
left. There's nothing left of it.
Right, we were living the Obama legacy.
And it was hard to. It's, by the way, that's a parallel to his own biography. Right, where he spent copious amounts of time trying to cover up the details of his biography. It took David Garrow in his, magnum opus, which came out a few years ago. He found out all his details about Obama's life, which had never seen the light of day.
Composite girlfriend.
Thanks to Obama, right. Look, though, this is an important story, but we cannot forget the real scandal, which is that the other night, Obama attended a Duke-UNC game.
Right.
The same game.
Lamestream Media is not reporting this.
No, this is the real story, as Andrew Stiles details with illustrations on freebeacon.com.
Exclusive photos.
Obama attends the game. Within minutes of the game starting,
33 seconds.
Duke star Zion Williamson's shoe blows out, and Zion leaves the game and potentially the season with a knee injury. Obama looked on just like he did in Benghazi. That's the story, Liz.
Or
it's true.
Looked on just
this
as
is
he
bigger.
didn't in Benghazi.
Right.
He was tipped off.
Happened under, as
Right.
Stiles
He was
put,
sleeping.
both things happened under Obama's watch.
Yes, only this time he was actually watching. But look, this whole I've never actually been pro EMP attack until now. Because I feel that like an oral history of the Obama administration is what they would prefer, and it's also what we would prefer as well, because it's much more creative and a lot more fun. I think after all the electronic records have been disappeared from history. Look, these stupid presidential museums, I am so over them. They are just that's what they are. They're presidential museums. These are not libraries, okay?
Yeah, but the papers are interesting. I mean, think of how many stories we had on Hillary because of their stupid library.
I like to think about the ones that we didn't have because of all the evidence that they destroyed.
Well, yeah, but there's still some there. They couldn't get all of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Aren't
this
you
they're
going
gonna
to
decide what's
don't
in
lie
it.
here. You're going to attend the opening of the Donald J. Trump Memorial Library and Casino.
Casino.
You're going to be there.
It's definitely going to be the best presidential library
ever.
in history.
I will be like one of the Duke.
It's going to be beautiful.
One of the Duke fans that was camping out 3 months in advance
Right.
for that game on Thursday or on Wednesday night. That's going to be me. I'll be camping out. I may move in over the weekend.
All right, now it's time to check in with Dr. Leonard Pondriver, Vice President of the David Gergen Institute for Excellence in Bipartisanship. Hello, Dr. Pondriver.
Shalom.
First things first, I have to ask you, what's your reaction to there was a heinous display of homophobia and prison shaming by your institute's namesake on CNN?
I'm glad you asked, and before I get into this, because it is a very serious matter for all of us at the Institute, I'd like to, if I could, just say a word about the upcoming Academy Awards.
Go ahead.
For me, this is a very special year. One of the films that is nominated for an Oscar, Green Book, is the most riveting and path-breaking movie I have seen probably since Patch Adams.
Wow.
Which really taught the world that laughter is the best medicine.
Doctor, could you describe for our listeners, the Green Book is where Viggo Mortensen drives the African-American jazz musician around the South, is that right?
Hollywood, are you listening? It's taken too long for Hollywood really to catch up with the rest of the country when it comes to race issues, and here is an opportunity to really right some wrongs. And I just say Green Book, Oscar, across the board. I hope it's a clean sweep. It is such a great movie. I don't want to say anything more about it because listeners may want to watch it, and I don't want to ruin the plot. But it is
no spoilers.
It's so life affirming. It's so hope affirming.
What is it's really. Like reverse driving Miss Daisy? Is that what you're referring to this as?
Another great film, which is up there with really Patch Adams for me and On Golden Pond. That's the trilogy, the trinity of great movies in recent years. But this is a great one, and I really hope it gets the recognition it deserves. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
So about the scandal. So the namesake of your institute.
Yeah, are you going to change the name?
He was on CNN and he made a joke about Roger Stone going to prison.
He called him a dandy.
He called Roger a dandy and said he might enjoy being assaulted, which is
bigoted language.
It's completely inappropriate. I was so shocked to hear David Gergen, of all people, the great Gergen.
Is that how you refer to him in the office?
It's how I refer to him in my head. And, it reminded me of a time when I went to New York, and I was so excited because, I'm a big fan of Guy Fieri. And I went to his restaurant, and let's just say it did not live up to the expectations. And that's what this was. It doesn't mean, by the way, that we don't give Guy Fieri a second chance. It doesn't mean we don't give David Gergen a second chance, because he's done so much great work when it comes to bringing the country together and finding consensus. But we are all human.
So you're going to stick
we're all cracked vessels.
You're sticking by the name of your institute?
Well, Northam's still governor.
It's an issue of debate. I don't want to really get into it right now. There are some people who have suggested changing the name to the Howard Schultz Institute, and we're working on some of that. There's some copyright issues involved, but it's a serious matter. But let's also remember that none of us are perfect, and I think that David Gergen deserves a second chance.
Okay. Well, we also have to touch on what's the bipartisan solution to someone like Jussie Smollett?
I'm so glad you asked this. I don't know if the podcast audience knows this, but I am a Caucasian American.
Really?
You can't tell by the
Costco.
voice.
I read Aaron Sorkin teleplays. I'm a white man. But, and this may be surprising, I love Empire. I watch it religiously.
Big fan.
Lee Winters he says he's just a spellbinding storyteller. So this story hit so hard for me as a fan of the show, which I have to say, it's not always easy to watch Empire because it's gritty and it shows you a world that maybe you don't want to look at. But as an American, we have to look at it because it's going to show us a side that we didn't see before. So I just want to get that out there, that I love Empire. So that was very hard on me. But I think we're really rushing to judgment here.
Let's let the facts come in before we call it,
Well, everyone is assuming that the motives for, admittedly, some of this fakery, and it's never good to lie. They're saying that he did this to get, more money for this great show. And I have to say, I think he has been underpaid because it is one of the finest pieces of drama I've ever seen. But that's aside.
You're talking about $65,000 an episode.
You're talking about his story that he told to Robin Roberts.
I'm saying that the argument that he fabricated this incident because he wanted more money, do we know that? Because I think he maybe have done this, and I have to say I'm kind of with Don Lemon on this, and Kamala Harris, to raise and just call attention to hate crimes. So in some ways he's doing
it's an awareness campaign.
Well, I would not have done it this way. the Gergen Institute way to do this, and I've been saying this for
It's
years.
out of the box thinking.
It's out of the box bipartisanship is finally let's start and get the seed money for a National Institute for Healing. That is the solution to raising awareness to hate crimes and all of these kinds of things. That's an out of the box way. I wouldn't have done it that way. But are we really going to judge him? Are we going to compare him
Yes, we are.
to other people? We're going to say that he's just some scoundrel now. I mean, have you seen Empire? It is a wonderful show. His portrayal on it is so moving. It's gripping drama. I would hate to see all of that disappear because of a mistake. It's the same reason why I don't want to kick the great David Gergen off of CNN for his, insensitive remarks.
Now, are you going to continue to watch the show? Because news has broken that they're writing him out of the final episodes of this season. Fox has decided. So that grittiness that he brought with his story
He's forced us to really look at some of these issues.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to continue to watch it. As I said, I'm hooked. As surprising as that might be, being the white guy. I'm the white guy who loves Empire.
That's not surprising.
I'm the white guy to love Empire.
Plenty of people who
white
like
guys
Empire.
didn't own television.
This is the problem with liberals like Pondriver over here.
Pondriver.
That's not how it's
Doctor,
spelled.
just say Dr. P.
Pondriver. That's how it's spelled. Okay? So one thing I want to tell you is that this is the problem with liberals, is that they want to use the talent and the art to excuse actual behavior. There is no excuse for this, Dr. Pondriver. There is no excuse, and the fact that you and your institute are backing Jussie Smollett in this waste of public law enforcement resources and dividing our country is hypocritical on your part.
I wouldn't have done it that way, but I am so glad that we're talking about hate crimes and we're having this dialogue right now. And would we have had this dialogue had he not done what he'd done?
Well, maybe we'd be having it about an actual hate crime. Wouldn't it be better to have the dialogue about an actual hate crime as opposed to ones that are fabricated?
Of course that would be better. But we
Just
don't
missing
live in
the
a
forest
perfect
through the
world. And we
trees.
cannot
It
allow the
doesn't
perfect
matter.
to be the enemy of the good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pondriver. Please stick around for our culture round. Up first, when bosses call walking meetings, some employees wish they'd take a hike. The Wall Street Journal reports bosses are forcing employees to leave the conference room to join them on, quote, walk and talk meetings in order to stay fit and productive. But some are starting to complain that such meetings entail aggravations such as blisters, insects, and ineligible notes.
Blisters?
Yeah, it's bad
These are
out
some
there.
long walks.
Hey, they are a mile long in heels. Walk and talk aficionados swear it boosts creativity. During one walking meeting, a New York marketing firm team saw someone wearing a neon yellow coat, which became a theme color for a conference they were planning. Quote, it's almost like back in college where your professor says it's a beautiful day. Let's have class outside, said Kevin Wenzel, a COO for a software firm. But most of these walk and talkers were inspired by The West Wing, where the characters talk urgently as they brainstormed on the go. Man, I knew this idea had dark origins.
I've now turned completely against all of these stay fit and active in the workplace plans, because as we have discussed on the show, I did get a standing desk, right? And I was using the standing desk, and I felt great because I was stretching my legs, throughout the day.
Sitting is the new smoking.
But then I found when we came back to work in January that I was going home with incredible pain in my hands and wrists. I realized that by holding my hands,
you developed like carpal tunnel.
I already have a slight carpal tunnel in my left wrist, but this was exacerbating and given to right. So screw all of these things.
Can't you change the angle or something?
No, because it was just the fact of like the weight of your arms.
Oh no!
So standing desk is over.
It's out.
It's gone, and I'm never going to adopt any of these be healthy while you work routines.
Can you imagine having the Free Beacon do one of these? That would be so absurd.
The whole thing is absurd, but once again, this is like liberal utopia because they all live in freaking Silicon Valley, where it actually is beautiful outside all the time, and you can go walk around.
Yeah, it's pretty dreary right now.
Now, nobody's going out there in this weather. There's snow, slush, wind. It's awful. Like, what are you going to do? Make them like ride or walk up and down in the stairwell? It does seem more torturous than anything, and also I think it opens up people to class action lawsuits. What about the fat people in the office? If you make some porker walk up like 7 or 8 flights of stairs, they're liable to have a heart attack.
Language? Is that what you said, Pondriver?
I don't
Porker's
think it's okay
offensive.
to call, overweight Americans porkers.
Well,
Saying that they're like pigs or something.
That's going to get a real debate.
I've had my
on this
own
show.
battles about my love of carbohydrates before, and it's no fun being overweight.
you
To
understand?
the Gergen Institute,
Yeah, what
do
is-
they do walk and talk meetings?
This is my point,
Seems
though.
right up their alley.
This is my point.
No, I
Everybody-
think it's a great idea. As I said, I read these Aaron Sorkin teleplays, and I think he came up with that.
What do you do with somebody in a wheelchair? How's the how are you going to go up and down stairs with somebody in a
that
wheelchair?
sounds ableist.
It is ableist.
Harrison.
Look, I'm just saying this opens
You're saying
up
they can't
the
keep up?
floodgates.
I want to ask Dr. Pondriver, though, what is the preferred nomenclature for those of heft?
Heft.
You said overweight Americans. Is there another
I'm pushing for over-caloried.
over-caloried Americans?
Over-caloried Americans. But
Americans
we're
of
still
girth?
working. We're still working on it. But
Well,
when
isn't that what you do at the
when we
Institute
hear-
all day? Is
when
you-
we hear porkers, that's not helping anyone. That's
triggering.
by the way, that's the kind of thing. When I hear porker, I want to go to the 7-Eleven and buy, buy a bunch of tasty cakes and Hostess pies.
It
and
makes
just
you
stuff
more
my face.
hungry.
It makes because I'm so shamed and I feel so terrible.
Right.
You're making people fat, Harrison.
I do not make people fat, okay? I just call it like I see it, and I'm trying to protect the fat ones out there from having to walk up and down these stairs. I think it is their choice, their body, and they shouldn't be forced into these exercises. This is draconian. I'm the one here that's for personal liberty and freedom.
We're not your personal punchline. We're human beings.
All right, up next, Under Armour CEO Kevin Plank has been turning to one special lady friend for his business advice, MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle. According to a bombshell report in the Wall Street Journal, the no-nonsense anchor flies around on Plank's private jet and suggested Plank get involved with the new Trump administration by joining the Manufacturing Advisory Council. Ruhle hawked Under Armour shoes on air without disclosing her relationship with the CEO, and she may have been the only person who liked the all-white Steph Curry branded sneaker, ridiculed as ugly chef shoes. Quote, "I dig 'em," she said on Twitter. Harrison, I know you've been following this story closely.
Yeah, this one really caught my eye yesterday. Stephanie Ruhle is a very spunky actor.
Can't get anything by her.
Journalist on MSNBC. She's got a lot of opinions. Very opinionated woman out there. Nothing wrong with that. Not judging. But what I will say is that they do tend to skew quite far to the left. She's been very scolding of our president and his behavior in office, which is absurd on its face because this country is doing better than it ever has been.
Yeah.
But the fact is that she has been overcompensating from a lack of personal character. All right. Many of the employees in the article have been accusing her of actually having an extramarital affair with the CEO of Under Armour.
Well, that is, and we need to say that is denied by
denied,
the company and by
but alleged.
by people.
But alleged.
Okay, but alleged.
People
that
are talking.
We need to take it's denied.
Alleged in the Wall Street Journal. Yes, she has her side of the story, of course. But I do find it curious. The relationship that she's had with Under Armour dates back years. She's been promoting Steph Curry back when she was a Bloomberg anchor. She's been promoting
Playing
Justin Spieth
shooting some
after
hoops with them.
the interviews, and it's never disclosed. That's the real ethical problem here, is that you have a journalist out here who may or may not be either on the payroll or the love roll of a company, and they are giving
It's a new
free promotion and advising this company without informing their board. So that's the other thing, is that the board of Under Armour is furious about this because it turns out that she's been advising the CEO without
think she
actually being
designed those
a
shoes?
part of the company.
Do you think she designed those shoes?
Oh, I have no. She's got a great fashion sense. I've always been a very big fan of the things that she wears on air. So I don't think she would have made such a monstrosity of an athletic shoe.
Matt?
I just want to give a shout out to Hacks on Hacks' Alex Griswold. That's the other podcast in the. Well, it's one of
Expanding
two
world.
other podcasts in the
Expanding
Free Beacon
universe.
podcast empire. But Alex, who also writes for the Beacon, of course, did the yeoman's work of actually looking up some clips and finding plenty of instances where Ruhle did hawk basically Under Armour products, which, by the way, I'm a fan of. Without disclosing
Something
her
you
relationship.
and Ruhle
Well, you know,
agree
as an athletic person like myself, I need something that contains moisture and perspiration and fit because I'm
For
always
all those
out there.
walking meetings.
Well, not the
build up a sweat.
more like the sprinting, shooting hoops, and of course the powerlifting.
Yeah,
So
I can really see you out there.
Yeah.
Look, you can't have. Look, it's happened to us all.
You and
where-
Dr. Pondriver.
Well,
we're doing that after the show.
we saw it on
I
the.
too
little
love
pickup
Under
game.
Armour.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, as you confessed, you are a white person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I wish Costco would have Under Armour products. It'd be
They don't.
great
That's
for me.
sad.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. All right. Up next, CBS News is out with tips on elderly driving and how to talk to your loved ones about handing over the keys. More than 41 million drivers over the age of 65 are on the roads today, and crash injuries sent more than 290,000 older adults to the emergency room in 2016. CBS says when talking to grandma or grandpa that you should focus on their driving skills, not their age. Matt, maybe it's time to have this conversation with the 2020 Democratic field.
Well, of course, really it's Bernie you have to have the conversation.
Bernie and
I don't know
Biden.
the last time Biden has driven
it's
himself.
true.
I mean, as a vice president.
Well, he's always on the Amtrak,
And and he takes the train. I've always been for a hard ceiling on driving. I think you reach a certain age and you should no longer have a license to drive. And that's true. There's some people who are probably very capable at advanced years who can still drive, but why take the risk?
I think 80.
80?
80 is the hard cutoff.
No.
Yeah. Look, we cut off at 16.
No,
we
if
can
we're
cut
going
off-
to do this, then
Yeah.
we should do an age limit for the Senate, the House, the Supreme Court.
No argument here. No argument here.
Presidency.
I'm all for that. I think we should install it now. It'd be great because, especially the Supreme Court, north of 80, we just picked up 2 more seats. We are now dominating.
I think we'd
thanks
lose
to Justice
one
Breyer.
now,
And
too.
I don't think we
Isn't
would.
Clarence Thomas? No, how old
No,
is
He's
he?
I
not
don't
80.
think so.
He's not 80
No.
yet?
Don't think so. Nope.
good.
Nope. We're good to go. All
right, let's do it.
Yeah. See, look, this is called persuasion. Okay, everybody's now on board with this. No, look, I've never been a fan of the olds. One of these days, I'll probably be there, and I'll be reaping the
If you make it.
all of the hatred and discrimination against them that I have impaled upon them over the course of this podcast. But let me tell you, it is a risk to others out there, not only to themselves. Like, it's one thing if they were always involved in single car accidents and it was basically God taking away their license, if you will. But it's another thing when they involve, young families, young people, other people that were just like out there abiding by the laws of the road. It's too big of a risk. I know this is a government imposition. I think it's
I don't
fine.
know about this.
I think
I don't
it's fine
agree.
to allow them, licenses that will maybe contain them on their own personal property. We could get them like those big wheels that like kids used to have. That you remember?
No,
like,
but
you could have like motorized scooters
but
and things like
golf
that.
carts get into accidents too.
Yeah, it's
and they
fine.
can be
Usually not
deadly.
fatal. Usually not fatal. Like, I think
they
there's
don't
a
go very
tolerable
fast.
risk. Broken concussions, broken bones. That's one
I don't
thing.
know. Is it really that
Fatalities are
dangerous?
another.
big
Driving's
wheels
so
idea,
slow
you got
anyway.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, big wheels for older people. I'm for it. It could be a growth industry.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's edition of Right and Writer. I'd like to give a special thanks to our producer, LB4. Of course, our Free Beacon guests, Matthew Continetti, Aaron Harrison, and Dr. Leonard Pondriver. Remember, find us on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Just search for Free Beacon. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a positive review. Like listener JBen75, who says, I demand to know how Harrison amassed an absolute unit of a staff at Sunny Bunch, at
staff.
Victorino Mattis, at Continetti, at LizWFB, at hashtag Griswold, Goldfarb, and more.
It's all.
How?
It was all Harrison.
All are so funny and unique and don't take it too seriously ever. Remarkable.
Yeah, I think that like if you listen to this podcast, it becomes self-evident.
That you
We
you're
hire
behind
the
whole
best
thing.
people.
Yeah, that's right. And now we need the best reviews. Let's get 5 stars. Everybody out there that's listening, I want a 5-star review
We need
by
them.
our show on Tuesday.
Until next time.